So, let's dive right into one of the most misunderstood ideas from the ancient world, dukkha. Now, you've probably heard it translated as suffering, but honestly, that's like calling the entire ocean wet. It's true, sure, but it completely misses the sheer vastness of the concept. In this explainer, we're going to treat dukkha not as some kind of religious dogma, but as a startlingly precise diagnosis of the human condition. It's like a clinical look at what makes us tick and what makes us feel just a little bit off. To really wrap our heads around this, let's start with an idea that just flips our everyday logic on its head. These ancient texts say that pleasure is always followed by pain, and pain is followed by pleasure. I mean, think about it. We're taught to chase happiness and run from suffering like they're two totally separate things. But what if they're not? What if they're just two ends of the same pendulum, constantly swinging back and forth? What if the very act of chasing one guarantees we're going to run smack into the other? And that leads us right to the heart of the matter. If dukkha isn't just the obvious pain we try to avoid, then what in the world is it? Well, I want you to think of it like a medical chart for our inner lives. One that doesn't just map out the big, obvious injuries, but also the chronic, underlying conditions that kind of shape our entire experience of being alive. Okay, so first things first, we need to expand our vocabulary a little. We're just going to set aside that simple translation of suffering for a minute and start looking at dukkha as a technical term, a really precise description of a fundamental state of being. So we're shifting from an event, like stubbing your toe, to a constant state. Forget that sharp, acute pain for a second. Instead, think of dukkha as this low-grade, persistent background static. It's that subtle feeling of friction in life, right? That sense that things aren't quite right, that something's missing, or that even our absolute best moments are just so fragile and fleeting. That is the real scope of dukkha. So, if dukkha is a condition, what are its symptoms? Any good diagnosis starts with clear, observable signs. And what's remarkable is that the texts lay them out with the precision of a modern medical textbook. And wow, this list just illustrates the sheer range of the diagnosis. It covers the big, unavoidable facts of life. You're born, you get old, and eventually you die. No escaping that. But it also pinpoints our deep psychological pains, sorrow, grief, despair. And then it absolutely nails the everyday frustrations we all know so well. Having to deal with people or situations you just can't stand, being separated from the people and things you love, and that constant nagging reality of not getting what you want. It's a complete map of life's friction. So here's the crucial part, how this all gets tied together. After listing out every possible symptom, the diagnosis is summarized in this one profound statement. In brief, the 5 clinging aggregates are dukkha. What on earth does that mean? It means that our very sense of I, our body, our feelings, our perceptions, our thoughts, our consciousness, the whole bundle we call me, it becomes a source of dukkha the very moment we cling to it. See, the problem isn't that things are unpleasant. The problem is our compulsive grasping onto a self that has to experience them. All right, so if the symptom is this clinging to a self, what's the actual disease? What's the root cause that's driving this whole behavior? Because a diagnosis isn't really complete until you find the origin of the problem, right? And the cause is given this beautifully descriptive name, tanha. It translates to thirst. And this isn't just a casual want like, I'd like an ice cream. No, this is a deep, parched, desperate craving. Imagine being intensely thirsty. It just consumes your attention. It drives you to find water at all costs. Well, tanha is that same force, but operating psychologically. It's the restless, insatiable engine of desire that keeps us searching and chasing, never letting us find a moment of real, lasting peace. And this thirst isn't simple. It's a pretty complex drive with 3 distinct flavors. First, you've got the obvious one, the craving for sensory pleasures, a great meal, a beautiful view, a pleasant feeling. Then it gets deeper, the craving for existence itself, that drive to be someone, to become more, to achieve something, to leave a mark. And finally, you've got the flip side, the craving for non-existence, that desperate wish to just escape, to disappear, to annihilate the pain and the self that's feeling it. Between these 3, pretty much every human motivation is covered. And the connection here is laid out like a law of nature, as direct and simple as gravity. Those who increase craving increase dukkha. It's not a moral judgment, it's not a punishment. It's just a simple mechanical reality. The more we feed this thirst, the more we amplify that background static of unsatisfactoriness. We literally become the architects of our own discontent. Okay, I know that might sound pretty bleak. We've got a chronic condition, and it has a relentless cause.
But this is exactly where the diagnosis transforms into a message of profound hope, because once you identify the precise cause of an illness, you can create a precise cure. So now, let's get to the prognosis and the prescription.
The prognosis is called nirodha, which means cessation. And this is a really critical distinction. This is not the cessation of life or joy or experience. It is the complete and total stopping of that frantic, thirsty craving. The best analogy I've ever heard is a raging fever that finally breaks. The heat, the delirium, the agitation, it all just fades away, leaving behind this natural state of coolness, clarity, and well-being. That's nirodha. And this slide really just lays out the choice we all face. Down one path, driven by craving, the guaranteed result is experiencing mental suffering and distress. It's a closed loop, you just go around and around. But the other path, the prescription, has a radically different destination, the complete destruction of dukkha. It doesn't just manage the symptoms, it offers a definitive cure. So what is this powerful prescription? What does the treatment actually involve? Well, it's not about blind faith or chanting in some complex ritual. It's about a radical shift in perception. It's about training the mind to see the world, and more importantly, ourselves, exactly as they are, without that distorting filter of our desires.
The first dose of this medicine is seeing anicca, or impermanence. The simple fact that absolutely everything that is put together will eventually fall apart. Every joy, every sorrow, every thought, every relationship, this very body. Nothing is solid, nothing lasts. And seeing this clearly isn't being pessimistic, it's just looking at the facts of life.
And this brings us full circle, right back to dukkha. But now we understand it on a much deeper level. See, if everything is fundamentally impermanent, then trying to cling to anything for lasting security or happiness is, by its very nature, stressful. It's like trying to grab a handful of smoke. The friction, the stress, the dukkha, it arises directly from our resistance to this basic truth of how reality works. And here we go. This is the final, most profound insight of the whole prescription, anatta, or not self. The idea is that if you look, and I mean really meticulously look, through your own experience, your thoughts, your feelings, your sensations, you can't find a permanent, independent CEO in charge. There's no solid me that's separate from it all. The self we're so desperate to protect and promote is actually a fluid, ever-changing process, not a fixed thing. And when you see that, really see it, it just pulls the rug out from under craving. I mean, if there's no solid self, who's left to do the clinging?
So what happens when this perception becomes stable? When that deep thirst of tanha has been totally quenched because its target, a permanent, graspable self, is seen for the illusion it is? The ancient texts give this beautifully simple and final conclusion. Esavanto dukkasa. This is the end of dukkha. The diagnosis is complete. The condition is cured.
And so we're left with this incredibly powerful shift in framing, to see our own restlessness, our anxiety, our dissatisfaction, not as some kind of personal failure, but as universal symptoms of a diagnosable condition. Well, that's liberating. So here's the final question to take with you. How might your life change if you started viewing your own daily frustrations through this diagnostic lens, as signs of thirst and grasping, rather than signs that something is wrong with you or with the world?